This is Edge of the Box, a podcast brought to you by WhoScored.com.
Hello, welcome back to Edge of the Box, a podcast by WhoScored.com in association with Bet Victor. I'm your host, Dan Bardell, joined as ever by Jonathan Wilson and WhoScored's very own Martin Laurence. We're a whopping 2 weeks into the season now, so guys, I'll start with you, Jonathan. What's the main observation you've taken away from that 2 weeks?
West Ham are still quite good.
Which good one. Good one.
I'd assumed that they wouldn't be.
He's admitted it.
I sort of thought last season was this is my attempt to get them to decline rapidly now. No, but I mean, yeah, I sort of thought last season was a bit of a freak. I didn't quite understand how they kept on beating sides, and I thought maybe it's one of those cases of a team getting on a bit of a roll, getting a bit of momentum. But yeah, 2 wins out of 2 from the start, 4 goals in each game, and yeah, okay, they will have sterner challenges. Leicester. Fifth last season, but without 10 men for a long time. But yeah, it's been a great start, and I think that should enable them to carry forward that momentum.
Yeah, they're doing it without their best player as well. Well, not their best player, but they're certainly one of their most important players from the second half of last season, Jesse Lingard. Maybe we'll go back, we don't know, but he's not there at the moment. So they've done well to pick up from where they left off from, really.
Yeah, definitely. I think almost Lingard's departure has sort of paved that way for Said Benrahma to actually have the impact that most expected him to have last season. He started this season really, really well. I was surprised he didn't sort of flourish, maybe not straight away, but over the course of the campaign, he didn't really progress a whole lot. I think he did come on a little bit and start featuring more, and he got a decent number. I think he got 6 assists by the end of the season, which wasn't bad for the sort of limited game time that he had, but goal and assist in both games, is it, this season? I think he's got 2 goals, 2 assists. So he's had a really strong start. So I think that will play a factor in whether they go back in for Lingard. I don't think they will now, personally. I think they're looking pretty good. Jared Bowen's staying. He was obviously linked with a move away. Fornals is playing well. So
yeah, good.
Depth is important, don't get me wrong, but it would be difficult to see them spending sort of money that maybe United would want now, I think.
Yeah. Is there anyone that you've anything that you've taken away of anyone that's impressed you that you're surprised by, Martin?
I'm a bit, not worried, but I'll go back on my Palace prediction a little bit, maybe. I maybe wouldn't scale it down to bottom of the league like Jonathan, but I did say 12th. It's not looking too sharp at the moment. Obviously, very early days, and I think the important thing is, and maybe the important thing that I sort of didn't consider in my sort of pre-season predictions was obviously Eze out. I did consider that, but also Elise, the youngster that they signed from Reading, not to replace Eze, but certainly to help pick up a bit of that sort of creative slack in his absence. He's got a back injury now, and it's a bit dubious as to how long he'll be out for. So they look short in that department now. I don't think they will be long term, but the start of the season, it's not ideal, especially when you've got a new manager trying to settle in. So yeah, not looking great for them. Obviously lost in the cup to a sort of second string Watford team as well. So pressure's on Patrick Vieira already, I guess. There's one team I've been impressed by, and I'll come on to it later because we'll talk about that game later. And it sounds a bit odd to say it, but it's actually Wolves. Been encouraged by Wolves. Lost both games, but I think they've
been a bit unlucky.
I think they've played really well in both games. But yeah, we'll come on to them later. But yeah, I've been encouraged by them. Not that I really want Wolves to impress as a Villa fan, but I think they're definitely making steps in the right direction.
Yeah, my early shout is that Brentford are doing what I said they'd do. I know there's only 2 games, but 4 points is a good start. I think they'll be well clear of the relegation battle. Won't say much about my Brighton to go down shout so far, Jonathan, but they're looking good as a surprise package early doors.
Not a surprise for me.
No. That's definitely true.
Yeah, I mean, their XG was so good last season that you either had to conclude that XG is complete nonsense, or that there would be a correction this season. And even though I think they could still do with a centre forward, and maybe they're a little bit fortunate at Burnley. I don't know. That game I find quite hard to read because I think they were sort of outplayed for certainly the first half, maybe in the first hour. But having said that, the goal they conceded probably shouldn't have stood. And then the last sort of half hour after the 2 subs came on, they were much better, and then comfortably beat Watford last week. So there's obviously much stiffer test ahead for them, but 6 points out of 6, that's a very, very good basis. That if you sort of think that 36 points these days pretty much guarantees you stay up, well, they're already 16% of the way there. Just over 5% of the way through the season.
Lovely stuff. Now, before we get on to Manchester City versus Arsenal and preview that game in detail, Martin, we've got a trivia question. Stumped Jonathan and myself last week. Both of us got it wrong with our guesses. What have we got this week?
Yeah, so it's the same format as last week. So we've got 2 free £20 bets to give away, courtesy of Bet Victor. All you have to do is answer the following question in the comments on this video on YouTube. You have to be over 18 or 18 or over to enter, obviously, and terms and conditions apply. The question may be a bit more straightforward than last week. It revolves around the Liverpool-Chelsea game. And the question is, who was the last Chelsea manager to win successive league matches at Anfield?
We'll come back to it near the tail end of the show. Jonathan is deep in thought over this question. So maybe I should start with you on the Man City-Arsenal games. The Adebayor derby, Martin. So I've just got memories of him tearing down the pitch to celebrate in front of the Arsenal fans. To be fair, Arsenal felt a little bit in disarray in those days under Wenger, but they'd do anything to have those times back now, wouldn't they? Have they progressed at all since those times, Martin?
Well, no, definitely not progressed. They've regressed for sure.
Don't make I've asked a silly question here. You did the script.
Yeah, no,
they definitely haven't progressed. It's your question.
It was mainly from the Emery days, I think I was alluding to, but okay. I'd still say the answer is no. It's 60 games now. Under 60 league games, I think it is, under Arteta. Emery had just over 50, I think he was given. And we looked at the stats of Arteta's sort of first 60 games and Emery's games in charge. But we also looked at Wenger's last 60 games for comparison as well, because obviously that was the decline of Wenger's time at the club. So that was Arsenal in decline at that point. And we looked at the stats from under those 3 managers, and it is grim reading for Arsenal, let's say that, or for Arteta. So points per game down from 1.73 under Wenger and Emery, interestingly enough. So Emery didn't actually, in terms of points at least, there wasn't actually a substantial drop-off from sort of Wenger's end at the club. There was in sort of key sort of performance metrics, but Arteta's points per game down to 1.57, so significantly down on Emery now. Goals per game also at the lowest under Arteta, 1.45. It's down from 1.9 under Wenger, 1.78 under Emery. I should say, and some credit where it's due, I guess, is they actually conceding fewer goals per game under Arteta than they were under Wenger's last 60 and under Emery, who was conceding the most. And I think that was Emery's problem. It was chaos, really, wasn't it? There was no real clear way of playing. And I think the goals conceded per game, and obviously they've dropped substantially as well in shots conceded per game from Emery's tenure at least. So I think, and also possession has also dropped from Wenger to Emery to Arteta, now at 53.1%. So I think that what that does show is, maybe, as much as it doesn't seem it, and it seems a weird time to say it, maybe in terms of their defensive organisation, they have actually made a little bit of progress. It doesn't seem it, because they still have the odd game where they're a shambles, and Arsenal, to be fair, have been like that for quite a long time. But they've only conceded 1.07 goals per game under Arteta, which is not amazing, but it's not bad. It was 1.37 under Emery. The issue is, yes, shots per game have dropped massively by 4 from Wenger's time at the club. Possessions dropped massively. Tackles are actually down, which is interesting. Again, alludes to the fact that maybe they are a bit more organised.
I'd say that just means it's a bit more passive. That's what I'd say.
No, but
from watching them against Chelsea.
If they're conceding fewer shots and fewer goals whilst having to make fewer tackles,
I suppose. More organisation. I suppose.
And again, one of the unsurprising stats is that the one stat where they're highest is their crosses per game have gone up, and obviously they had that spell, didn't they, under Arteta last season, where they were just hammering balls into the box relatively aimlessly. Dribbles per game are down, so it's not great. So their WhoScored rating under Wenger's last 60 games, 6.93. Under Emery, 6.77. Under Arteta, 6.69. So, declining in almost every aspect, other than maybe that sort of defensive organisation side of it. So it just just sort of points to the fact and backs up the fact that they're just becoming dull. And that is not what you'd expect of Arsenal, really. And I think that will be his undoing eventually.
The thing that disturbs me with Arteta is he's not what I thought he was. And so I assumed he'd come in and he'd be sort of, not a sort of Guardiola clone, but at least be pushing that style of football. But Martin alluded to it there, that spell where it was all about crosses, and it felt very David Moyes at United.
I remember us talking about it.
Yeah, so it's almost like an abnegation of responsibility of, I can't work out how to organise this team, so we'll just get the ball and we'll pump it in the box and we'll hope something happens. And I suppose that's how football sort of was 30 to 40 years ago, but I'd have hoped that Arteta was a bit more sophisticated than that. So that really concerned me. And then what sort of persuaded me Arteta was probably on the right track was the way they've ended his 2 seasons in charge. So those results through April, May of last year and then this year, you're winning the FA Cup and then the 5 wins at the end of last season. But then all of that just seems to have disappeared again. Now I know players are missing, but I just think the organisation, which has been good, the defensively, as as those stats suggest, I think they've been pretty much all right under Arteta. But these last 2 games, they've looked appalling at the back. I mean, that first goal against Chelsea last week was just dreadful from everybody. Pablo Mari got far too tight to Lukaku and then was weak. I mean, being weaker than Lukaku, I guess, is not really a criticism. That'll be true of a lot of players. But Cedric Suarez getting caught behind the defensive line. Tierney tucks in field, which, okay, I can understand he feels the need to cover a cross, but then why is nobody filling in that space? And those aren't they're not kids, they're proper footballers. And so do they have to take responsibility for not having some sense of how to do that themselves, or do you blame Arteta for not having organised them? And I just sort of think you end up coming to the conclusion there's this sort of sickness at Arsenal which pervades everything, and I think that's quite hard to shift.
Because the way I saw it was, if something happens once or twice with the ball into Lukaku, okay, fine, you're getting used to the shape of the game and the momentum of the game things, but he literally they did nothing to curtail it, nothing to stop it, and the same things kept happening over and over again. And
they did change it to an extent in the second half. I mean, I think they were much better at getting Granit Xhaka in the right position in the second half. But why did it take till half time? And how was that not anticipated? If you expected Lukaku to start, which most people did, and then obviously you get the team sheet an hour before kickoff, why are you not focusing on stop the ball into him? And I think the attempt to sort of drop Xhaka into a back 3 rather than trying to box Lukaku off, I think that was a very odd decision and a flawed decision. And that is Arteta, irrespective of the individual mistakes and the general organisational mistakes around the first goal, and to an extent the second goal. Just the basic plan seemed off. And I still can't work out what the overall plan is. Are they going to play a back 3 this season? Because if you're going to play a back 4, Ben White seems a very strange signing to me.
I don't know whether I heard correctly, but I thought they said when they thought Ben White was going to be fit against Chelsea, that the plan was to play a back 3, and then Ben White got injured and they went to a back 4. I'd say if your best centre half gets injured, there's probably more need to play a back 3, and there was other centre backs on the bench. So I'd never understand anything Arsenal do. I've got to be careful because I'm getting more Arsenal fans on my Twitter at the moment than I am Villa fans, and I'm getting a bit of stick. But it's because I don't understand them, Martin. I don't get ever what they're trying to do. I think when Jonathan harps back to Arteta's first season or first half of season, when they won the FA Cup, they had the FA Cup run. I was watching them and thinking they're passing the ball around nicely. Everyone was having a touch of the ball and they were scoring goals off the back of it. They won the FA Cup. I thought, I get what he's trying to do here. But they're now so far away from even that. They're worse than they were then when he took over.
Yeah, well, I think maybe that's what they're trying to address this summer with recruitment of younger players. I think maybe they've realised, and too late in many respects, and certainly in terms of giving Aubameyang that long-term contract. Obviously, he played well in the week. We should say he's got a hat-trick in the week, so again, not ideal timing. But I think they've probably realised that their sort of key players are now on the decline. So it will take time to adapt. But yeah, it's that result. I know it was against West Brom reserves, but having some important players back, it will give them a little bit of confidence to go into this. The only thing is they wouldn't want to be going into an away game at Man City off the back of that level of confidence. So it's not great timing in that respect either. But there were signs with their best players on the pitch that they still have a plan in attack. Whether they'll get to showcase that this weekend is another matter.
I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if they didn't score for the third consecutive game, to be perfectly honest. Now, Jonathan, one of your favourite players in the world, in world football, Ronaldo, being heavily linked with Manchester City at the moment. Would you like to see him back in the Premier League?
I would love to see him at Manchester City. I think it would be absolutely hilarious. I really struggle to think of two entities less suited to each other. And I'm all for that. I think football should be about hilarity and disruption and rich people wasting money. Mainly about rich people wasting money. That's one of the few joys I get from, I was going to say from football, but actually from life these days. I mean, if Sergio Aguero isn't mobile enough and doesn't do enough defensive work for Pep Guardiola, who on earth thinks Ronaldo is going to be able to do that? Ronaldo's move to Juventus is one of the worst transfers in the history of football. And people go, "Oh, he's scored 81 goals in 3 league seasons." Well, they were winning the league anyway. They'd won 7 league titles in a row before he got there. And okay, they win the next 2, but then they failed to win the 10th. And they've spent 100 million euros for the privilege. He was brought in to be the extra step for guaranteed goals to give him the edge in big European games. Since when they've gone out in a quarter-final and 2 last 16 ties. They're further away now from winning the Champions League than they've been for, I don't know, a decade probably. Having him there has destroyed the financial structure of the club. They've had to deal largely in free transfers around him. So the age profile of the squad has changed. For the development of the squad has been broken by his arrival. And tactically, they're a shambles. You can't win the Champions League with an immobile forward or a forward who doesn't do his defensive duties, which PSG have found with Neymar, which Barcelona found with late period Messi, and PSG I'm sure will find this year. It doesn't matter how talented they are, how many goals they guarantee. If they're stopping you getting the ball back, which is what it's about at the very highest level in the very biggest games, they're an obstruction to progress. So I think that's an appalling waste of 100 million euros plus the 41 million euros a year, whatever he's making. I mean, for City to sign him would be so contrary to everything they as a club have done since Sheikh Mansour came in. So contrary to, I mean, okay, maybe that first couple of seasons when they were signing Robinho, but certainly the last decade, once they sort of worked out, big money signings, you've got to be very careful with them. So contrary to everything Guardiola stands for. As I say, I'd love to see it just because it would be so bad and so wrong. And you give the title to Chelsea now if that happens.
Yeah, I can't see it. I can't see Pep and him working together at all, Martin. I also can't imagine someone he speaks to quite a lot, Sir Alex Ferguson, ringing him up on the phone and saying, "I wish you all the best at City, Cristiano."
Yeah, no, well, Manchester United fans are sort of not up in arms about it, but they wouldn't be happy.
It can't be true. It can't.
They really should be.
No.
If I was a United fan, I'd be thinking, well, he's won my club a Champions League and however many league titles, and now he's going to, torpedo our biggest rivals. It's hilarious. It's the best of all worlds.
I don't see it as a factor at all, for what it's worth. I think there was a video going around where people were claiming that he said he'd never play for City. Unless I saw the wrong video, that's not what it said, really. He just said, "Oh, it wouldn't be the money that sort of motivates that move if he were to make it. He could just go to Dubai or whatever," which is fair enough. But
going to City is kind of doing that in a way, isn't it?
Kind of doing that. Yeah, at this stage in his career, yeah, it is.
I mean, does he even know who City are? Well, because City weren't a factor when he was a player in England.
Robinho didn't.
Yeah.
I suppose they have won stuff recently, but when he was playing in Manchester, City weren't a thing, were they? So
people that think it will be a good move
are wrong.
Say that, wrong. Yeah, I agree, are wrong. But would say that City create so many chances and Ronaldo will score those chances. But it's still the fact that Pep Guardiola demands a work rate, and that's just what defensive work rate at least, and then you just don't get that. You just do not get that, and that's just the difference there between ideologies is vast, and I can only see it having a negative. He could score. He probably would score 20 plus goals. Probably would, but I still agree with Jonathan that it will be a similar case to how it is at Juventus, and it will be to the detriment of the team as a whole and of the dynamic more than anything.
Well, he probably scored 20 plus goals in one game against Arsenal at the Emirates, to be honest. But yeah, I'm the same as you. I don't see it happening anyway. I can't see it as being something that goes through. Just back to the game then, Martin, because we didn't really get your opinion on the game. Have Arsenal got any chance at all?
No. No, I don't think so. Like, we've obviously predicted a win for City, and we'll get onto that. But yeah, like I said, they will take a little bit of confidence from that game in midweek, and obviously they got Ødegaard back on the pitch. Ramsdale made his debut. It'll be interesting to see who starts in goal. I imagine it'll be Leno, but who actually made an incredible save from Lukaku, didn't he?
Yeah,
in the Chelsea
he really did.
So I imagine it'll be him, but that'll be an interesting sort of topic moving forwards. But yeah, they'll take a little bit of confidence. But like I said, this is just not the game they want to sort of back it up.
No. Give us the bet builder then. We've got a bet builder for this game, haven't we?
It starts with Man City to score in each half. They've scored in both the first and second half of 4 of their last 6 home games against Arsenal, and in each of their last 6 league wins at the Etihad. I think most people will fancy that. Both teams to get at least 1 card seems a sort of very, very safe bet. Both teams have received at least 1 card in each of the last 8 meetings between the teams at the Etihad. 35 cards in total across those games. The risk, I would say, or both the player bets are slight risks, because it's the Guardiola roulette, isn't it, in terms of the lineups. I'm sure you'd like to cover that in fantasy football.
We got it wrong last. No, we got it wrong last week on the bet builder, didn't we?
Yeah. So yeah, true. So we've actually got, it is a risk, but we've gone for Sterling to score any time. The basis is he scored in each of his last 4 league appearances against Arsenal. Loves playing against Arsenal, and the fallback is that he did score off the bench last weekend. So even if he doesn't start, it would be. I predict he would start, having not started last week, and given his record against Arsenal, I'm very hopeful that he'll start. But if he doesn't, maybe not the end of the world. And then the final leg of the tip is Rodri to be carded. He's been booked in all 3 of his Premier League appearances against Arsenal. Obviously came in last week, missed the defeat on the opening day, came in last week. So I think he should keep his place, and gets bookings often against Arsenal. So that bet was already an industry-leading price, I believe, at 20 to 1, and it's been boosted to 28 to 1. Now, a leading bookmaker, leading rival, has it at 14 to 1, so it's double that price. So it's a very juicy price. I know it sounds like 4 legs, but each team to get 1 booking sounds pretty safe, doesn't it? And the sort of Man City to score in each half. Most people would back that, I imagine. So, yeah, 28 to 1, I think it looks a really, really good price.
I mean, you say it's almost a certainty, but that is very much up to whether Arsenal can get near Man City to make a foul and get a booking, to be honest, isn't it? There's every chance you did say that last week. There's every chance that way. Did I make the same joke? Too many podcasts making the same jokes over and over again. I said about this before we came on. Right, then let's get the predictions then. I presume everyone's plumping for Man City. So what's yours, Jonathan?
3-1 City.
3-1 City. Martin?
3-0 City.
And I've gone 3-0 to Manchester City as well. Before we look at Liverpool versus Chelsea, then let's catch up with our Bet Victor rep. Here's Sam Boswell. Let's start with West Ham, because they are absolutely flying at the moment. I'm not sure where they would have been at the start of the season for the European race in terms of odds, but where are they now?
Significantly shorter. First of all, big well done on the win last weekend, guys. 13.
I'll take all the credit.
Took us all the credit to the cleaners. So well done. Fingers crossed you guys can land another one today. But let's talk about West Ham. In the race for the top 6, which we've got a market for, they're now 5-2. I mean, you can't help but be impressed by them. They face this weekend a Crystal Palace side who we may touch on in a minute in the relegation markets. And at 5-2, I can see that getting a little bit shorter. The one thing I'd have a concern with, if you're backing West Ham for top 6, they are going to have a busy time of things once the European action kicks in for them. I do think they desperately need to support David Moyes with some transfers. But, we've got a few days before the deadline. I'm sure I'm sure something will come good, and we'll see some new faces at the Olympic Stadium. But just to run through some other prices in the top 6, Arsenal obviously had a tricky time of things. Looks like the League Cup may have been the tonic they needed. They're 9-4 to make the top 6. Leicester even money after a bit of a shocker against West Ham, albeit with the red card impacting that. Spurs, Harry Kane staying. I think at 8-13, they're a huge price to make the top 6 now. They're going to have their 25 goal a season man staying for the year. Sounds like he's happy enough to stick there, and he's going to want to play and score goals. So yeah, interesting shake-up in that market, and it will continue to chop and change throughout this season.
I've said this kind of thing before, but very, very generous talking about Arsenal for top 6. Let's move on more to their kind of realm then. Let's talk about relegation. How are the odds shaping up with that?
You got 25.
Not so much. It wasn't aimed at Arsenal. Relegation in general.
Hey, listen, I'll let the Gunner fans come for you, not me. I'm just here to tell you the prices. 25 to 1 on the Gunners. But in a more serious note, Crystal Palace significant movers in this market now, getting close to even money, 11-10 to finish in the bottom 3. Norwich still your 4-6 favourites to go down, having looked a little bit average, to be frank, so far this season. Burnley 5-4 to finally get the drop if Sean Dyche can't turn them around. 6-4 Watford, 15-8 Newcastle, Brentford 11-4. And Brentford, I'd say the ones that are probably defying the prices that we had out at the start of the season so far. Making good ground so far, picking up some points and keeping a clean sheet against Crystal Palace the other day was good going. So yeah, interesting mix in the relegation. Wolves, a few people were tipping them to go down at the start of the season. They're 4-1, and the likes of Villa and Brighton 12-1. Brighton, give them credit where it's due. They've certainly shown that they're not going to necessarily be in that relegation dogfight this year.
We talk about top 6 and Arsenal come into the conversation, and then we talk about relegation and Villa get mentioned. What's going on here, sir?
Listen, I'm just here to share the prices with you. That's all I'd say. You're the same price as Leeds and Brighton at the moment, which I think is interesting because of the 3 teams, if you had to say who's going to have the better season at the start of the season, I'd have gone with Villa all day. As much as I like Leeds and the way they play football, I just think they may have a very tricky season this year. And Brighton, I must confess, I've been surprised with, and so have the odds compiler. Definitely a big change in their price.
One of us on the panel had Brighton to be the surprise package of the season. One of us had them to go down. I'll let you decide which way round that was from Jonathan and myself. Is there anything else floating your boat in the market at the moment, Sam?
Finally, I should just give a real mention to what I think is, to my eye, the most interesting game of the weekend. You've got the likes of Liverpool versus Chelsea, but I'm quite keen to see how Arsenal do against Man City. Let's not forget, this is a City side that have already lost this season. You know, for all Arsenal have looked a bit woeful, they have players back now. I just think this game could be very interesting. You've got a City at a short price, 2-9. I can't ever remember Arsenal being as long. I think this must be one of the biggest prices they've ever been to win a Premier League game. 12-1 away at City, 11-2 the draw. That's the one I think I'll be keeping a crafty eye on. Alongside, I think that Chelsea-Liverpool game is going to be very interesting as well. But a great weekend of action. As ever, we'd encourage people to gamble responsibly. It is a marathon, not a sprint this season, and I'm looking forward to hearing your views on the rest of the weekend's action.
Liverpool versus Chelsea then, Jonathan, and Liverpool started very, very well. Has the general public and us to an extent underestimated Liverpool's resurgence a little bit, or is it just too early to tell?
I don't think so. I mean, my doubt about them, it's not to do with the first 11, it's to do with the depth of the squad. And we saw last season, last season was a freakish season in terms of injuries, particularly the fact they just hit centre-backs rather than any other position. But we know the first 11 is very, very good. We know sort of the first 15 is very, very good. It's when you get beyond that they do become vulnerable to injuries. So the fact that they can play very well in games and they can beat Burnley and beat Norwich, I don't think that should surprise anybody. This obviously is a much tougher test, but even this, it's not really the thing I'm worried about. What I'm worried about for them is what happens come January, February, March, particularly when the Cup of Nations hits and they lose Salah and they lose Mane, and Matip, if he's decided he's going to play for Cameroon and the tournament is in Cameroon this year, so maybe that's more appealing to him than previous Cups of Nations have been, and injuries start to strike. So. It's good to see them playing well because they are a good team to watch when they're playing well. But I don't think Norwich and Burnley are the things that anybody was concerned about.
And Martin, Lukaku obviously had his field day that we've already discussed last week at the Emirates. Now this is tasty. Lukaku against Van Dijk. That's going to be very interesting.
Lukaku again. I said it before last week, and he scored. But a lot of the sort of problems or the critics that he had when he was in the Premier League was that he didn't score in these big games. His record against Liverpool, not amazing either. 5 goals I think he scored against Liverpool, but all of those goals came for Everton. So yeah, this is a test much more so than Arsenal, isn't it? Let's be frank. And up against Van Dijk is a big test for him early in his return as well. The one thing I would say, and this isn't to bring Lukaku's level down, but if there was one game that I guess that you would want to prepare him to play against a Lukaku for Van Dijk, is probably Burnley in terms of the physical battle that he'll face. As much as Klopp obviously moaned about the sort of the aggressiveness of Burnley and does every season. That battle that he had, that physicality that he faced, obviously it's a different style, but in terms of actually testing Van Dijk's fitness, his physicality, that's a good test, isn't it? And obviously he'll have it potentially an even bigger one against Lukaku. The one thing I would say is, I think Jonathan mentioned it last week, Van Dijk's aerial success rate is excellent. He's outstanding in the air. Against Burnley last week, his aerial success rate was only 42%. So it was 76% the season before he got injured, which I think it was the best in the league. So only 42%. So maybe there was a little bit of an issue there in terms of, obviously he's suffered a very serious injury. So that sort of ability to spring, that sort of thing. The only sort of counter argument I would make to that is, I think in terms of aerial duels, Romelu Lukaku probably gets overestimated. He's not actually amazing in aerial duels. His aerial success rate in Serie A last season was 43%. Now that's not awful for a striker. Most strikers will be happy with something around the 50% mark, but it's not great for a striker that you generally consider to be very good in the air. I think he's more very good in the air when it comes to attacking crosses and in the box. In terms of aerial duels, I'm not sure he's outstanding, and the stats certainly back that up. So I do think Van Dijk can win out in that respect. So I don't see Chelsea being able to play to that sort of apparent strength of Lukaku, but they'll try and do what they did against Arsenal to a degree, won't they? And play into his feet and get him to pin centre back. So it'll be a really, really interesting game. I think in general, in terms of battles and head to heads, I don't think there's a much better one than Liverpool Chelsea in terms of comparable players. You've even got right back, you've got Alexander-Arnold and James, Kante and Fabinho in midfield. There's just comparable players all over the pitch, I think, and it's a really, really interesting game. Yeah, the combined 11 is an interesting one, but we'll get onto that in a bit.
Yeah, I mean, I think it'll be more of an interesting game than an open, entertaining one, Jonathan. I mean, I guess one of the other differences as well is that Arsenal have had Xhaka, Liverpool have got Fabinho. If he's there at the base of their midfield, he could get involved in the Lukaku stuff and play a part as well. Yeah,
or Jordan Henderson as well, who I think has become much better in that deeper lying midfield role over the last few years. I think that was a problem, that he was being asked to play that when he wasn't quite equipped to do it. And I also thought he was better as the right of the three in midfield. But I think the last 2 or 3 years, I mean, obviously he was injured for much of last year, and also playing centre back. But the couple of years before that, so the year when they won the title, he played there quite a lot. Fabinho was injured through the November and December, and Henderson dropped back. And I sort of thought, oh, this could be the wobble. But he was excellent in that role. He's obviously not as physically capable, I don't think, as Fabinho, but reads the game really well. And I think certainly would give far, far more protection than Xhaka offered.
I'd say this could be weirdly be a game for Timo Werner, Martin, as part of Chelsea's front three. If you get him playing in between Matip and Alexander-Arnold, that's another threat, I would say, against Liverpool, who tend to push quite hard.
Yeah, that's a good point. I think as much as Alexander-Arnold actually had a very good year in general, I think in terms of his form for Liverpool since the turn of the year has actually been very good, started this season well. But I think teams will still target that, won't they? That sort of threat in behind him down that left channel. So yeah, I think that's a good point. That's another lottery, isn't it, for Chelsea? I think they're becoming almost similar to the Man City in that regard. You really can't predict. I mean, you'd back Lukaku to play pretty much every game now, but the two players off him, who's it going to be week to week? It's really, really difficult to predict.
I mean, I guess Mount plays most games. You would think that would continue. He's either Werner, Havertz, I guess
Ziyech.
There's so many. Ziyech, yeah, Hudson-Odoi. I know he's bad more as a wing back.
bad.
Yeah, okay. It's not. It's a decent attack. Don't get me wrong. I mean, I'm very happy with Danny Ings as Villa's only senior fit striker. You know, I wouldn't want all those options. Who needs all those options? Absolutely terrible. So then, picking a combined 11, Martin. What have we got, and how have you done it?
How have we done it?
We did it because we do it the same way every time. But what's it based off last season?
Yeah, based off last season. We're not basing it on 2 games. Based off last season from league starts. What I should say is we have included Van Dijk's last full season, just because I think it would be a bit odd, just incorrect not to have him in there, basically. So in goal, it's Alisson.
Actually.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah, no, that is
good questions.
I don't think I'd have remembered to bring that up either, to be fair.
There we go.
So it's Alisson over Mendy in goal. And like I mentioned it before, it's Reece James over Alexander-Arnold at right back, perhaps not a surprise based on last season's ratings. But I do think that's a really, really interesting. It's not a battle because they play on opposite sides of the pitch, coming up against each other at least. But that's a really interesting head-to-head just for England in general, isn't it, for the future? Van Dijk is partnered by Rudiger at the back, and the left back is Ben Chilwell. Andy Robertson, obviously, still injured. Tsimikas has had a very good start to the season. Obviously, wouldn't qualify for this, but he's impressed me.
Yeah, he has.
I'm surprised he didn't get any minutes at all last season. Not surprised because Robertson's always going to start, but I did think he was a decent backup, and just never rotated Robertson at all. In midfield, it's Thiago. Maybe somewhat surprisingly, he hasn't actually started a game yet this season. Also worth pointing out that Fabinho hasn't started a game. So Liverpool are doing very well in the absence of Robertson, Thiago, Fabinho. Obviously, Firmino hasn't started, and I think maybe it's the beginning of the end for him. But Thiago and Kante in midfield. So Jorginho misses out, which will get a lot of stick, I'm sure. Mason Mount at the front of that midfield. And the front 3, unsurprisingly, is Salah, Lukaku, and Mane.
You would not want to play against that front 3 at all. Jonathan, thoughts?
Well, the difficult thing was deciding whether to play 4-3-3 or the 3-4-2-1. I went with 3-4-2-1 purely because Chelsea finished higher in the league than Liverpool last season, so I think it makes more sense to base it on their system. So it's actually a pretty similar team that I picked. Alisson in goal, a back 3 of Matip, Van Dijk and Rudiger. Kante and Jorginho at the back of midfield. The wing backs on the right, Alexander-Arnold or Reece James. I think it's almost a toss of a coin. I went for Alexander-Arnold. I think he is slightly classier going forward, but it's a very tight call. On the left, you'd have Robertson if he's fit. He's not. So just because Alonso's played this season and Chilwell hasn't, I went for Alonso. And then Lukaku as the centre forward, and I went for Salah and Mount just off him. But yeah. If you want to play Mane there, I'm not going to complain too much. So for once, I'm largely in agreement. Boringly,
I said that a few times. I feel like the tide is turning and Jonathan is converting. I wouldn't go that far to be fair.
In a month's time, he's going to absolutely adore a combined 11.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, he's going to be champion. I mean, like, no, we've had enough of it, and Jonathan's like, we've got to do it. But it'll be interesting to see if this is the game that Chilwell comes back in. I guess because I think most people would agree that he is more solid defensively than Alonso. So up against this Liverpool attack, it'll be interesting to see if Chilwell gets his first game.
I feel like Alonso's the favourite of the two. I don't know whether I'm getting it wrong, but I just feel like he gets picked more often. He's good for a goal. I just feel like out of the two of them, it's been a big surprise since Tuchel arrived, but I feel like Alonso's probably the favourite of the two of them.
I think Chilwell ended the season very strongly, didn't he? Got the nod in the Champions League. Got the nod in the Champions League final, so that's probably the biggest indication of who your favourite is to play in the biggest game of the season. But it is close. It is close. I think Alonso's obviously fought his way back into contention very well. Got more stick than I thought he deserved when he did fall out of favour. I know he's not the best defensively, but he is also
not the most mobile, is he?
Yeah, no, true. But he's such a threat. He's still a very good player.
One of the many mistakes Sunderland made. Sunderland had him on loan.
I forgot that. Yeah, he played for Bolton as well.
Yeah, I remember.
Yeah, he did. Sunderland had him in 13-14 on loan when they got to the League Cup final, and I think they could have got him for 7 or 8 million at the end of that season, and they decided to pass up on it. Which, given some of the money Sunderland have wasted, that would have been better off going for him.
Get Will Grigg again, I reckon.
God, that documentary. Jeez, I missed that. Bring that back. Let's get our predictions then. Jonathan, we'll start with you.
1-1.
I've gone 1-1 as well. Martin?
We have gone for 1-1. So that sort of inspires it's not our nap. It's not a nap at all again, but we have got a boost on not just that, but I'd be interested, and we haven't planned this at all, so it'll probably go horrifically wrong. But if you had to pick one player to score in the game, who would you go for?
Probably Salah.
I sort of, this has a feel of a game that will have a penalty. So Salah or Jorginho. So I'm happy to stick with Salah if we need to pick one between us.
Works perfectly. We have gone for 1-1, which we've all predicted, and Salah to score any time, and that's been boosted from 15-1, which I think is already a very good price, to 20-1 by Bet Victor. So, yeah, I think that's an excellent price. Very, very tempting. And, yeah, if you do get on that one, we'll have the tips, as ever, in the description to the video, and do gamble responsibly.
I mean, while we're on the subject of betting, we had a great first treble, didn't we, last week? If people got on that, they'd have been very, very pleased with us.
Yeah, 13-1 winner on the Saturday 3 o'clock treble last week. It was Villa to win, which was my tip. Jonathan had City to win by 3 or more goals against Norwich, banker. And Dan went a bit more left field, and fair play, Dan. Rafinha to score any time, really, really did the legwork in that sort of price. Boosted
nice
to 13-1. Yeah, boosted to 13-1. So a very good winner. I had a tenner on it. So well done, guys. Thanks for that.
I forgot.
We'll be tracking our sort of profit and loss over these trebles over the course of the season, I should say. So taking the individual prices from each of our tips to see who you would win or indeed lose the most money with over the course of the season. So for what it's worth, if you'd bet on Villa, a tenner would have won £11.50 profit. If you'd bet on Jonathan's, you'd have had an £8 profit. If you'd bet on Dan's, £22.50 profit from a tenner. So if you do bet a tenner on all of them, £42 profit. So yeah, a very nice start, high bar to try and reach.
Let's talk about the predictions then before we get into the just a minute section. How did it go for us last week?
Yeah, not bad. Better than the first week for most of us, at least. Although Jonathan, who was in the lead, is now not in the lead.
Oh.
He got 8 points, having got 9 points in the first week. 8 points for Jonathan. Dan, 9 points for you last week. Just a reminder, it's 1 point if you get the correct sort of outcome result, and 3 points if you get a correct score. Who scored 13 points?
Jeez.
Three correct scores. So raced into the lead on 19. So it's 19 who scored, 17 Jonathan, 14 Bardell. Got to do some catching up.
I knew I'd called Leeds Everton spot on. Obviously, the bet was from Leeds Everton. So I had a good time with that game. I had a great time with that game.
Got 2-2 and Rafinha to score any time. That would have been
not so much with the other games then, as I'm sitting bottom of the table. Let's do the just a minute section then. Jonathan, we'll go to you first. Home of football, Aston Villa against Brentford.
Villa obviously had that very poor start to the season. That first hour at Watford was pretty dismal. And I think that might have been them being bad rather than Watford being good. Picked up the end of that game and then beat Newcastle comfortably enough. But it was only Newcastle, and they did need a couple of tight VAR calls to go their way. No Traore, no Watkins, so he can't play against his former club. No Bailey, probably. I mean, they're all doubts. But Ings is in great form, having scored 2 in 2. Brentford, I think we're still sort of seeing what they're about. Obviously, there's a euphoria of that first game, beating Arsenal very convincingly. And then the sort of bread and butter of having to go to Selhurst Park. And fair play, and they're still very well organised, and they battled out a goal of straw. Again, I think stopping Palace from scoring is not necessarily the hardest thing to do at the moment. So they have a full squad apart from De Silva. I think Mingers against Tony could be key. And I can see him coming out on top in that. And so I will go Villa to win 2-0.
Martin, how do you see it?
Yeah, we've got Villa to win. Tighter, though. 2-1 Villa we've gone for.
No, I've not gone for Villa. I've gone for 1-1 in that game. I like the look of Brentford. I think that, and they're a team that Villa never, ever used to be in the Championship. True. I think 1-1 might be a safe bet, actually. Who have we got next then? Martin, you've got Brighton against Everton.
Okay, Neil Maupay is a doubt for the host due to a shoulder injury, though it is not as bad as first feared for the striker, who scored in each of Brighton's first 2 appearances. Aaron Connolly is the likely candidate to come in the absence of Danny Welbeck, while Brighton's makeshift defence will continue as is, with Adam Webster's move to right back, allowing for the shock return of Shane Duffy. The Irishman spent last season on loan at Celtic and capped a strong start to the season with a superb header against Watford last weekend. Everton will be without forgotten man Moise Keane after he was sent off in the week in what could be his last game for the club. The Toffees will have one eye on Kylian Mbappe's future after it emerged that PSG may show an interest in Richarlison should the Frenchman be allowed to leave, which I don't think will happen. Michael Keane has made a poor start to the season, so Rafa Benitez will be hoping to have Ben Godfrey back available soon, though that looks more likely after the international break. The last match between the sides in April ended in stalemate and put an end to a 6-match streak in which the team playing at home had won. Indeed, there hasn't been a single away win in 8 Premier League meetings between these two, and home advantage seems more apparent than ever at this early stage of the season. So Brighton could top the table after 3 games. I'm going for 2-1 Brighton.
Nah, they're going down, mate. I've gone for 2-2. Everton to draw 2-2. Again, Jonathan, what's your prediction?
I've gone 1-1.
Jonathan, next for you is Newcastle against Southampton.
So 2 defeats in 2 for Newcastle, and Steve Bruce has gone to this sort of weird rambling mode where he complains about armpits and VAR things that aren't actually true. And you sort of think, if you can't be bothered to find out what the regulations now are, what other bits of your job are you not bothering with? I've always been fairly sympathetic to Bruce, but I'm starting to turn against him now. And I suspect that a lot of the crowd at St James's Park could turn against him. So if there's not an early goal for Newcastle, I think that could become pretty toxic and pretty poisonous. They do have Joe Willock, which I think is a big thing for them. Obviously finished last season really well, gives them drive from midfield, which are desperately lacking, particularly with Shelvey being injured. Isaac Hayden also out, and Dubravka and Darla both out, so goalkeeping issues. Southampton had that miserable start against Everton, looked much better against Manchester United last week. Armstrong's still out. They lost this game 3-2 last season, and I do wonder whether Newcastle might, just as they so often do under Bruce, pull out a result just as they needed. So I've got Newcastle to win 2-1.
I've got them to lose 1-0 at home, and there to be lots of boos around St James's Park. Martin, what WhoScored gone for?
Yeah, well, we agree with Jonathan, and it's based on the fact that Steve Bruce just does seem to sort of delay the inevitable time and again. So we've not gone for a win for Newcastle, but we've gone for a 1-1 draw that just about keeps his job, I reckon.
Yeah, I'd be chuffed with the 1-1 draw, Bruce. Absolutely love stuff like that. Norwich v Leicester for you, Martin.
After his second string side secured a thumping 6-0 win over Bournemouth in the Cup, Daniel Farke may be assessing the order of said strings ahead of the visit of Leicester. New teenage signing Christos Solis put in a man of the match display with 2 goals and 2 assists for a perfect 10 rating at WhoScored, and will surely have earned a start. Fellow newcomer Josh Sargent also capped his first start with a brace. After 2 predictably tough outings for Timu Pukki, the Canaries will be relieved to finally have some competition for the Finn. Leicester will be out without Ayoze Perez following his red card at West Ham last weekend, so Mark Albrighton should come into the team on the right wing. The Foxes' defensive injury woes were compounded by new signing Yannick Vestergaard sustaining a knee injury, joining Evans, Fofana, Justin and Bertrand on the sidelines. The lack of consistency at the back also appears to be affecting the one defender that has managed to stay fit for a sustained period in Jalar Soyuncu, who struggled last time out. Leicester, along with Bournemouth and Newcastle, were one of only 3 teams that Norwich didn't lose to in their last short stint in the Premier League, winning this fixture 1-0 and drawing at the King Power. With that in mind, I'm going for Leicester to win 2-1.
I was going to say, I'm surprised. I've predicted exactly the same as you, but everything you were saying was making me thinking that I've called this completely wrong. Jonathan, who have you gone for?
I got Leicester 2-1.
Okay, there we go.
But yeah, I had this thought process before the West Ham game, and I thought, but Leicester is better, so they'll win. Mm-hmm. And of course, they weren't. Although that first 15 minutes before the goal and the red card, I sort of thought, I was right about that. But yeah, all those injuries, I sort of think if Norwich can't beat a Leicester team missing 38 players, who can they beat? But yeah, I still think Leicester have enough. So yeah, Leicester to win 2-1.
Right, your next game is West Ham against Palace, Jonathan.
Well, Palace, I think really struggling the start of the season. As I've said before, I think the changes they made were the right ones. They just made too many too quickly. Really struggled for goals so far. Haven't scored any goals so far. Partly that may be injury-induced with Elise and Eze out. Milivojevic also not there in midfield. But that difficulty scoring goals was also a problem for Vieira when he was at Nice. So I do wonder for something tactical there as well as to do with personnel. Losing at Chelsea, we can't read too much of that, but they looked so limp and so insipid against Brentford that would concern me for Palace going forward. West Ham have been the complete opposite. Scored 8 goals, 4 goals in each game so far. Mikel Antonio's in great form. Jared Bowen looks really good. They're playing really well going forward. They've got great confidence. They had the second best home record last season. They started off with a 4-1 win this. So you would expect they will win this one fairly comfortably. So I'm going 3-1 to West Ham.
I've gone West Ham to win 2-0. Martin, who scored?
Yeah, we've gone big. We've gone West Ham to win 3-0.
Ooh. Antonio to be dancing with a cardboard cutout by the end of the game. Martin, your final game is Burnley against Leeds.
Burnley will be buoyed by their Carabao Cup triumph over Newcastle in midweek, but had new goalkeeper Wayne Hennessy to thank. Manager Sean Dyche afterwards called for more signings, and Burnley supporters will be hoping for slightly more inspired arrivals than the return of Aaron Lennon. New defender Nathan Collins made his debut in the Cup, but Burnley will more than likely go unchanged from the side that lost to Liverpool, with key midfielder Ashley Westwood still a doubt. Leeds made light work of lower league Crewe in the Carabao Cup, as you might expect, but attention is now turned to getting their first league win of the season. Diego Llorente managed 45 minutes on his return from injury, while forgotten midfielder Adam Forshaw made his first appearance in nearly 2 years. Jack Harrison put in a perfect 10 performance in midweek and scored against Burnley in this fixture last season. Burnley actually started the better side against Liverpool, arguably, last weekend before running out of steam, and it's hard to look beyond a third straight lead defeat to Leeds on Sunday. Burnley were beaten 4-0 in this fixture last season and actually lost both league meetings without scoring, despite having more shots than the Whites across the 2 fixtures. We're going for that to happen again. Leeds 2-0.
And I've chucked in a 0-0 because no one ever puts a 0-0 in there, so that you never know. At some point, a 0-0 might come through. Jonathan?
Well, I'm a little bit concerned by Leeds. I think they need that first win. But we talked about this when Leeds played Manchester United, that the way they play very much suits certain opponents and doesn't suit others. It doesn't suit Manchester United. I think it does suit Burnley. Leeds win. I've gone 2-1.
Yeah, I'm just trying to do something different. When you're at the bottom, you've got to show no fear. So I've gone for the 0-0. Last game then for you, Jonathan, is Tottenham against Watford.
Obviously, the big news is Harry Kane staying. So it'd be interesting to see what reaction he gets. I assume it'll be pretty good because things are generally going well for Tottenham. So back-to-back 1-0 wins plus Kane staying. You can see the mood being, euphoric's probably too strong, but certainly there'll be a positivity there. And they probably do need him because they may need him because Son is a doubt with a thigh injury. The one thing you would say is that Nuno at Wolves, the criticism of him was that he struggled to win this type of game, the type of game where you are expected to win against a lesser side. So this is a test of whether he can step that up. Watford had a very good first hour against Villa. Didn't really look particularly special at all against Brighton last week. And if you look at them last season, they only scored 19 goals away from home, which I think was not in the top half for the record in that division, despite them getting promoted. So I'm going 2-0 to Spurs.
I've gone for Tottenham to win 1-0, continue their run of 1-0 terror. Martin, what WhoScored got?
Same as Jonathan, 2-0 Tottenham.
Not too many the same this week in terms of predictions. So going to be interesting. I expect to see myself even further marooned at the bottom by the end of the weekend. Let's finish then our previews of the games with Wolves against Manchester United. And we were talking before we came on, Martin, and you're having Wolves.
After a season that was pretty difficult for the fans, just in terms of just tepid football, really, under Bruno towards the end, they just look pretty exciting now. And I think that turnaround has already started to happen. And obviously they've lost both their league games 1-0, haven't scored yet. But they did score 4 in the Cup, obviously against Forest, who are in disarray. So not much of a yardstick, but goals from Trincao and Podence. So that should give them confidence. And they just look a lot brighter in every regard, really. They're second to Liverpool for shots in the Premier League this season. Obviously haven't scored any of them, but they're creating plenty of chances, which you just couldn't say under Nuno last season. They were sort of middling for shots last season. I think they were 10th. The second after 2 games. And it's 2 games, but it's 2 games against Leicester and Tottenham. So they've started really well. They're top for tackles as well. Their intensity's just gone up. They're top for interceptions and top for dribbles. Maybe you're not so surprised about the latter because they've got Adama Traore. But they weren't top for dribbles last season. And even without Adama Traore, I think they'd still be about 5th for if you took away his dribbles, they'd still be about 5th. So just playing exciting football, and we haven't seen that at Wolves for a while. So I think Bruno Lage? I don't know, but I think he's come in and had the impact that they would want on the playing style for sure. So I think this is a tricky game for Man United. Personally, I think it should be an exciting game, and more exciting than we've been used to from Wolves Man United fixtures in the past, which I always just remember being pretty dismal.
The stats are very impressive. Even the highlights, you can tell that they're playing a much higher line than they did. They look much more exciting than they did in Nuno. I think Nuno's his inherent conservatism was sort of compounded by what happened with Raul Jimenez last season. So I have a certain sympathy there. But I think with United, and this is the problem I've always had with Solskjaer, it's obviously a phenomenally gifted group of players, and they're very good at playing on the counter, and they have people like Cavani and Pogba and Fernandes and Rashford who can turn games with one moment of brilliance. But when it does go wrong, it's because they can't get that coherence through midfield. And you saw exactly that against Southampton. Southampton pressed them really well. Everybody now knows that United basically attack down their left, not down their right. That Wan-Bissaka is not somebody who naturally links up the play in the way that Luke Shaw does. So if you can stop that passage out to the left, then you really disrupt them. And that's compounded by the fact that they're 2 deep lying midfielders. Particularly when it's Fred and Matic, as it was last week, they tend to be very narrow and sort of sit on top of each other. It's a little bit different when McTominay is there. And Wolves were very good at stopping United playing under Nuno. So they played, there's been 8 meetings between Nuno and Solskjaer's side, and United only won 3 of those, and they only scored 7 goals in those 8. Now, it is a different Wolves, it is a more aggressive, more attacking Wolves, but the basic structures there, United have had problems with before. So I think this is a real test of United. And also, there's a little bit of pressure already that to win the league, you probably can't afford to drop more than 20 points. Maybe 25 you get away with. But I suspect this season, because City looks so good, Chelsea looks, well, obviously City had a defeat, but the squad looks so good, Chelsea looks so good, Liverpool will be good again. I think it's going to be mid-90s minimum. So 20 points is all you can drop. They've already dropped 1/10 of that. So if they were to lose another 2 points here, suddenly it's incredibly difficult for them to cling on. So, I think it's a fascinating game in terms of United's. I don't know if United have any title aspirations, but if they did, in terms of how serious they are.
Yeah, because that Southampton draw threw up a few worrying things, really, didn't it, Martin? So like Jonathan says, a little bit of pressure now, because back-to-back away is taking, let's say they draw 2 in a row. It does put them on the back foot.
Yeah, it does. And I just think Solskjaer sort of shot himself in the foot a bit. I just think after you've come off such a convincing sort of attacking performance, why change the attack? There's no need to do it. After, I get rotate your squad. It's one game. They weren't playing in the cup in midweek. Why move Greenwood from the number 9 where he was really, really impressive and bring in Martial? Unless it's a case of maybe putting him in the shop window. I don't know. That's the only sort of...
Well, and it's particularly inexplicable because it's not like he's going to play every game all season because they've got Cavani to come in.
No, exactly.
So, it seemed very odd to me.
It was a really strange move. And it was just, they were so good against Leeds. Why change it? Is he trying to be too smart? I don't know. What's he trying to do with that? Especially, you're stunting Greenwood's development in that position. Because I do think he can be that long-term central striker for them. And he was really good against Leeds. He obviously scored, but he didn't have a very effective performance. A bit of a scuffed finish, to be fair, but didn't play amazingly. But I wouldn't hold that against him. I just thought bringing in Martial was a strange one. Obviously, I think the Matic change was enforced, wasn't it? McTominay injured, I think.
He came on
correctly. Did he? Oh, okay, but
he came on. Yeah,
he's a fitness doubt now, so maybe a fitness concern. But Matic, having said that, I think he'll play an important role this season. He looked really off the pace. Didn't play well at all, and obviously they're linked to Sal Niguez quite heavily now. So it could be. I wouldn't put any money on this at all. But surely this is a chance for Donny van der Beek to get a game. Surely if he still exists.
No chance.
But the thing there is, if he doesn't play, why are they?
Who's he going to play against?
At least loan him out. I understand the market lacks liquidity at the minute, but surely somebody would take him on loan and pay a contribution to his wages. rather than just having him sort of sitting around. I don't know. Maybe he's incredibly jolly and lively, and everybody has great fun with Donny, and they don't want him to go. But that would be a surprise, frankly, from everything you hear. So what's the point of having him there? I just don't get it.
It's a waste of a very, very good player. So it's just shame.
Yeah. Let's have your prediction then, Martin.
Now, having said all that, personally, I would go for a draw. But we, as WhoScored, as an entity, have gone for 2-1 United.
I've done the same, Jonathan.
Yeah, exactly the same.
It'd be an interesting game. Quite looking forward to watching that one, actually. Because
I feel it's going to be like the Brentford Arsenal game where I saw the looming surprise and then overruled myself on the grounds that it was a bit unlikely. But
yeah, I'm not sure. But at least if we're all the same, we're all in the same boat, I guess.
So all in this together.
It's good for you. It's good for you, Jonathan. You can't lose anything on that one. Can't lose any ground. So
that's true. Yeah.
If you just kept predicting the same as us all the way through, you'd win the league.
No,
you wouldn't.
WhoScored
would. Well, by the start, yes, I am.
But I'm taking on a. Yeah, this is like Kasparov taking on Deep Blue. I'm taking on the massive algorithmic machine. So even to be close is an honour.
Yeah. Great.
Yeah, I mean, it's very, very difficult. I'm taking on the entity of WhoScored and one of the country's top football journalists. So, it's always going to be an uphill task for me.
I wouldn't say I was one of the top.
Oh, nice. Nice. Let's do the trivia reveal then, Martin.
Oh, yeah,
I know, but let's have our answers. Well, it's not.
Yeah, go on, have a guess. Have a guess.
I pulled it back. I'll let Jonathan. Do you want to go first, Jonathan? Do you care?
Okay. Well, I'm semi-confident on this.
Oh yeah.
So I'm pretty sure that Mourinho's second spell, there's obviously the Gerrard slip game, and I think they then won at Anfield. I would say sort of around about the October, November of the following season. And that was one of those games that sort of you thought, yeah, they are definitely going to go on and win this. So I'm saying Mourinho in his second spell.
That was my initial thought, but I feel like it's no point us just guessing the same, is there? It's no fun at all. That's a question.
What's that?
If Hiddink had two spells, if he won in one spell and then won again in the next spell, would that count as consecutive or no?
No.
Okay, it's not
relevant to the answer, don't worry.
Okay. I'm just going to go off the cuff and I'll just go Di Matteo.
No.
Yeah.
It is Mourinho. It is Mourinho. Very good. And it's spot on. Exactly as Jonathan called it.
Well done, Jonathan. Well done, Jonathan.
Thank you. Oh, I'm really annoyed because I knew the Alonso answer last week and I talked myself out of it.
Me too. Me too.
Yeah. I could remember him scoring. I can't remember what the question was now, but I could remember him scoring against whoever.
Who scored the most goals against Chelsea?
It was against Arsenal.
Against Arsenal, sorry, yeah.
Against Arsenal, yeah.
Yeah. Oh well, we live and we learn. We get stronger each week. You've bounced back this week, and that's the main thing. Let's finish with our treble then, Martin.
Yes.
This week.
So we're doing a Sunday treble this week, as there's 3 games. So we've each picked a tip from one of the games. I'll let you go first, Dan, as you've got the early kickoff.
I mean, I wasn't allowed what I wanted. So
I should say
what I picked.
We've literally just reduced it to draw. You did want to go for a nil. You wanted to go for 0-0 draw.
Not allowed.
Which is not the most popular betting market in the world. I won't lie. Not many people fancy.
After my heroics last week, I should be given the chance.
Well, we haven't gone against you so much. We've still gone for draw. We've let you have the draw. It's just because with that on its own, 0-0 draw is 10-1. So in a treble, I checked the treble that combined with mine and Jonathan's tips, and it would have been 42-1. So probably a little bit long to get much interest. So yeah, it's draw we've gone for your game. I know you've got loads of reasoning.
Portugal.
I know.
Goal in for both teams and both halves written all over it.
Yeah, it does.
No, there's no faith showing in me. Absolutely no faith showing in me whatsoever.
I will give you £10 if it ends 0-0. There you go.
All right.
Is that consolation at all? Yeah, you take that. Okay.
I'd quite like to take £10 off you, to be honest. Jonathan?
I've gone Spurs to beat Watford 2-0. Not 2-0, but without conceding. Yeah, so that's the phrase that people use. Yeah.
Yeah.
As I said in just a minute, because Watford just don't score goals away from home. Only 19 last season. Tottenham obviously look very good defensively this season. So maybe I've bottled it a bit by saying without conceding rather than going 2-0. But what are the odds for that?
On Tottenham to win 2-0, I do have that actually. Let me just check it. The odds on that 0.3, so just over evens. Yeah,
just over evens. Yeah, that's fine. I'm happy with that.
And Martin, who scored?
WhoScored have gone for, having said that I remember all Wolves United games being particularly dull. We've gone for both teams to score, Wolves, Man United, which we all went for 2-1, didn't we? So both teams to score in that game. I'm not convinced United will win, but I do think both teams will score. Wolves, as I said, look a lot more promising attacking wise and do have the confidence of scoring 4 in midweek. And United, you wouldn't back against them scoring, would you? So we've gone for both teams to score in that game. I think at Molineux, that's bore fruit in 4 of the last 5. So yeah, that's the reasoning.
And all in, where does that leave us?
All in, that leaves us. The original price was 12-1 on that treble, and BetVictor have boosted it to 14-1. So yeah, mentioned it earlier. Had a 13-1 winner last week. Gone one step further, a little 14-1. Let's see if we can back it up. The link, as ever, will be in the comments. We'll post stuff on social as well, and do gamble responsibly.
Excellent. Let's leave it there then. Always a pleasure to converse with you both. Thanks for watching as well. If you are new to the podcast, or if you're not even new to the podcast and you haven't subscribed with your post notifications on, then make sure you're doing that. We'd really, really like to get the subscriber numbers up. But for those that are commenting and enjoying it, thank you very much. We all enjoy doing it. We'll be back next week to preview the next. I know that we won't be back. Will we be back next week? What goes on international break, Martin?
I'm planning on that. I think we will be back. It's the day after. It's the day after the transfer window closes, so we might do a little transfer show roundup.
There we go. There we go. I didn't know.
Jonathan does not fancy it.
Thrilled.
No, I've had the start of the season has been a phenomenal amount of work, and I was looking forward to a slightly more relaxing week next week. But transfer window.
This isn't work, Jonathan.
We can get.
This isn't work. It's a pleasure. It's a pleasure to talk to Martin and myself about Premier League football.
I'm getting paid for this. I don't know if you are, but
no, Dan's not getting paid.
Just about. Not on the high salary like Martin's on for doing this podcast. But yeah, always enjoy speaking to you both. Thanks ever so much for watching. Have a great weekend. See you later.